Welcome to the second best of 5 of the evening. We're on Overgrowth, spawning to the bottom left hand side in teal, playing Zerg for Team Hush. And the United States of America, it's NoveaStar. Doing her little extractor trick. Just as... who else does it? I think... yeah, Novea does it very often. I think Alaris also does it. And then to the bottom, no, to the top right hand corner in red, playing Protoss for O Gaming TV. And France, it's Midastouch. So he just plants down her gateway. And Novea just think that this is the best map ever. Either she really means it, or it's just a sarcastic remark, but we can't really tell just by her writing. But since Midas is smiling towards it, she probably thinks that it's not Novea's real opinion of the map, or not the literal opinion of the map. So it's PvZ, so hatch first, going hatch first, and then into gas, and then into pool is actually the standard opening for Zerg here. Novea already sends out an overlord towards the high ground position, probably somewhere around here, so she can get a good view of at least part of the entrance towards Midas' natural, and she will also be able to spy whether Midas has already taken a base or not, which is also pretty probable. The gateway expand is also a typical standard build for Protoss around here, and then later on you usually just want to wall off that area with pylon and a few buildings, just leaving a small little gap for your units to come out. And then we'll see what Midas actually plans to do in the long run, if she just wants to go for some sort of two-base timing push, killing her opponent before she can actually just get a significant amount of army up. In the meantime, we just seen Midas blocking the potential third base location using a pylon over here. While running around, one of the drones was just chasing the probe of Midas that was just scouting the area, and once they arrived at the third base location, Midas just threw down the pylon just to make sure that the drone wouldn't stay behind after her opponent realized that she had gone into a nexus. So yeah, she just threw it down and blocked this position for a little bit longer, and now of course Novea first has to wait for a few units to arrive in order to clear that pylon before she can finally take that third base. Talking about players' play styles, I think most of the regular FSL viewers by now should know that Novea actually loves her mutas. She likes to go into muta play very often, almost in every game and every matchup, but especially against Protoss. I mean, in ZVZ we see her go mutas all the time, but also against Protoss she usually tries to mix them in at some point. Don't really know if Midas already knows that, and if she's done some research on her opponent. I mean, the VODs are all out there, it's easy for players to just check their opponent's playstyles. Novea has also been streaming lately, and I actually remember that Midas was in chat and on stream when Novea last streamed, so she should have actually gotten a good grasp of what her opponent is usually doing. Novea already has the Overlord in position that will help her to later, or actually right now, just sneak in and get the information needed. She will see the Twilight Council researching something, not really knowing whether it's going to be just speed lots, or the attack speed for the adepts, or maybe blink. Always difficult to tell. That's actually something that made Legacy of the Void gameplay a little bit more difficult, since sometimes you just see a building researching something, but it could be actually almost everything, since all of the 3 tech trees are actually quite okay in their respective circumstances. So, sometimes it's really difficult to figure out what your opponent is doing. You usually just want to get out towards the, or just want to poke the front a little bit in order to see what kind of units your opponent is producing, and that might actually tip you off what the upgrade might be headed towards. But yeah, in this case it wouldn't even actually help, because we only see 1 adept and 1 sentry and 1 stalker, so that again just wouldn't really help us. Actually, it seems as if there's 1 more stalker in the mix, and I think the next warp-ins should actually really be a few more adepts, no? Okay, we'll see what's going on. At least Midas is not fully committed to an all-in. She wants to go into a Nexus right behind that push and wants to deal some more damage with it. The Mothership Core is already out in position, so she will always have the possibility to recall her units if need be, and if Novea actually has too many forces out. And actually her forces are looking quite okay at the moment. She has a lot of Zerglings already out, is now producing 10 more. Of course, the only thing that Novea really wants to produce unit-wise are Zerglings, because she just wants to save up gas as quickly as possible, since her own Spire, who would have thunk, is already on the way and halfway done. And when it's completely done, of course Novea wants to have banked some resources up in order to just transition into mass muta play right at that point when the Spire pops. So that's just the usual thing. Of course, it's also kind of a giveaway if your opponent actually realizes what you're doing. Seeing a lot of Lings early on just usually tips off a Protoss that the Zerg player is going into mutas right behind it, because that's just a strategy that has been used ever since the early days of Wings of Liberty. So if you are an experienced Protoss player and you see a lot of Lings, and in Wings of Liberty actually Zerg also needed a lot of spine crawlers to hold their bases, then yeah, that was just all you needed to know. You never needed to see the actual Spire. You could just guess what was coming because of those information. Okay, Midas is just trying to secure her base over here. Actually, the mineral lines are still pretty vulnerable. There's no pylon back here whatsoever. So whenever mutas fly in, there's just nothing to help defending. There are at least 2 pylons back here, but the Mothership Core is not anywhere near in sight. We have 2 cannons, but not really backed up in the mineral line. There are the first 2 pylons going down right now. Okay, Lings are already massing on the right flank, over at the right flank, and now the mutas actually flying in. And yeah, they are going to hit the most terrible spot imaginable for Midas here. Unfortunately for the supply block of Novea, Novea can't really produce any more mutas right at the time, but of course she doesn't really lose the production that badly. She just won't have it at that point in time. But since lava banks up and money banks up, you can always produce these units later, of course, if you haven't died by them. So, at the same time, I think Novea should go into 4th base, and here it goes, right behind the attack, just waiting for a few more mutas before finally revealing him. And yeah, it seems as if Midas is not totally unaware. She now has her Mothership Core back here, but if Novea actually just bothered to take it down, I think she would have easily gotten it. Midas' reaction time a little bit slow here, so I think she could have just easily gotten a lot of probe kills over here. And yeah, now again, I just wonder why she went into the early adept attack speed with only a few adepts around by now, mostly stalkers, but only getting blinked by now. I feel it was pretty wasteful to just get the adept glaives set up, although she couldn't really get it. Or she couldn't really do anything with it, that was more of the problem. So Novea actually already transitioning into Corruptors was probably expecting some sort, or is maybe already expecting some sort of Stargate play right behind it, because that's what most Protoss actually do once they spot the mutas. They just want to go into like double Stargate production and then just pump out Phoenixes like crazy, because Phoenixes usually are the only unit that can reliably attack mutas, especially once they get into bigger masses. But then of course, if you already have your Corruptors out, you can just easily re-counter the Phoenixes and thus just regain your advantage without ever losing it. So in the meantime, Midas just wants to turtle a little more, wants to buy herself some more time with all of these cannons, and that's actually quite a fortified spot over here. It will be pretty difficult for Novea to just get in here, but of course the most important thing for her is that she just can deny her opponent a base for like forever. If Novea is just wandering around with her mutas, always walking from one side to the other, always putting some pressure on her opponent at some point, yeah, her opponent will just always be forced to just walk around from left to right, from right to left, trying to fend off this pesky muta flock, and will never actually be able to get another base anytime soon. Or they just risk that you just move in somewhere, kill off more workers, and will actually even get that base without cancelling it. So she just denied it, but her opponent couldn't cancel it before it actually got down, so 400 minerals actually killed. And yeah, I wonder why Novea just didn't get in. I mean, she saw the army being totally out of position, could have easily just flown in and killed off that mothership core, that pylon, even with photon overcharge. These are not static defenses that would actually matter at all. So if behind Dark Shrine, so that's when the Dark Shrine goes down, maybe it might be able to just bring her opponent back into the game. Ooh, awful, just getting all of the mutas clumped up at one position here. If just one unit had been there in time, like maybe one big storm onto that clumped up muta mass, that would have been just great. But here's the big offensive here, yeah, and that's actually an army that Novea can't really attack straight head on, and that's actually the biggest problem with mutas here. Okay, she just flies in, sends in the links, sends in the mutas right on top of that army. Some of the Archons have died already, but there's still 6 of them left. And they just deal terrible damage to all of the units that Novea actually has at that point in time. Yeah, now, unfortunately, the Corruptors are just pretty dead weight here. For now, Novea hasn't managed to get into a Greater Spire that would give you the possibility to morph these Corruptors into Broodlords, so the only standing army that Novea actually has are only Mutalisks and Zerglings, and both of them don't really fight well against an Archon-based army, and we can almost say, well, it's Stalker-based with some Archons in the mix, but I mean, having 6 Archons with your army is just pretty devastating, and an army that Novea can actually never engage into directly. Yeah, and counterattacking, that was just the part I wanted to come to next, was actually the only other thing that you could do. If you can either just walk around from left to right and right to left and defend against the mutas, trying to fend them off, trying to keep them from killing your workers or your structures, or you can just shit on that and say, you know what, if you want to harass me back at home, I just go and kill your fucking bases. And that's just what actually Midas did here, moving out, forcing her opponent back into a direct engagement, or, of course, a base trade, but both of those Novea could not have won. So, once more, Midas just moves in with a superior army, I feel. I mean, she has good upgrades. It's 3-0 to 1-1-1-1-1. And at the same time, it's just mutas. I mean, mutas are great if your opponent doesn't have some counter units. Yeah, now the Archons are fighting in a big arc against these mutas. More Archons coming in from behind, and Novea just has to retreat. There's nothing she can do. I mean, she never has enough forces on the ground in order to kill that army. Nuh-uh. No way in hell. But she also doesn't have the necessary means in order to take it out from the skies. So what can you do? I mean, mutas are best not in a direct engagement, unless of course you have a huge flock and your opponent just doesn't have the necessary anti-air. But once the opponent does, mutas are good at harassing, mutas are good in flying around, chasing your opponent from A to B, or just keeping them busy, but in a direct engagement, oftentimes they're pretty terrible. And this is what we're going to see here. GG, and Midas takes the first map. Second map of this best of 5 is Daybreak. Midas spawns to the bottom left hand side in red. Wants to plant a pylon down on top of the ramp. Quite interesting. Some people actually tried to wall it off a little bit earlier here, while Novea just goes for the double extractor trick once more. We'll probably just take a base over here with the first 300 minerals available, while sending out her Overlord in order to get some good scouting information. Probably just sends it over to this high ground location here, so it will give her a total view over the natural ramp, which will allow her to tell whether her opponent is moving out or not. And maybe a second Overlord will fly towards the backside of the base and then just later on fly in. Sometimes people even send it over here in order to get some more information of when these gases have been taken. Actually, this point back here has also always been a favorable Overlord position, because you could just park it here and then just see when this gas was taken, and also when these minerals were saturated. So, or we're being saturated, actually, you could say. So that's just something you could do back then in Wings of Liberty when this map was new. But until then a lot has changed. Now we have a mothership core, it's easier to get vision of that high ground position and shoot down that overlord, so it's not really that much of a common position anymore. Or maybe it will get just... maybe it just will relive its old glory, we'll see to that. So Midas has just already sent out a probe, just gets all the good information she would ever need, just sees that it's a hatchery first build into spawning pool, is now planting down her own nexus, which is actually not that far behind to Novea's hatchery, but of course it is a little bit. Might even try to just deny that third base for a little bit more again, planting down a pylon, and here it goes. So again, Novea will just have to wait for the first few units in order to take out that pylon, and only then she will be able to take the natural third base. I mean, she could also even take that other third base, but it's pretty far forward and pretty difficult to connect with creep, so I think she'd rather not. So let's see what she actually wants to do afterwards and how she decides to move on. So first gateway produces an adept, or the first, yeah, it's the first gateway that produces the adept, just only for the gap so that a few early produced links won't be able to just rush in. Another gateway in the production tab. And the Nexus almost closed down. Actually quite interesting that she uses so many buildings up on top of the ramp instead of just walling off down here. I think that would be more of the reasonable decision, I feel. But yeah, I mean, she's actually not even seeing her opponent trying to tear down that pylon. So up till now, I feel Midas should actually just think that her opponent might just overwhelm her on two bases. So she really wants to have a wall off as quickly as possible, but she's already planted a lot of resources. Well, actually only one resource, or maybe even the cybernetics core. I mean, with another pylon up here, or with the second pylon down here, she could have actually already had like two buildings and would only need a few more in order to seal this off. But yeah, it's a pretty wide open entrance towards your natural base, so I mean, usually you just want to have it closed as soon as possible. Back on Wings of Liberty, you did it with the good old Forge Fast Expand, and just started with a Forge down here. You just put the first pylon down, here, and then started with a wall off with a Forge and a cannon, and then some gateways and the cybernetics core later on. But of course, the Forge Fast Expand is not really that common anymore, since now Zerg has a lot of possibilities to just pass by a complete wall-off, by, for example, doing Overlord drops or using Nidus Worm play earlier on with the Invincible Nidus play. So what you actually want to have are not static defenses anymore that just close your wall and help you defend it, but you actually need movable forces. You need some army units that can walk to a place where they are needed, because Zerg can just get a detour into your main base. So finally, Novea starts to nibble away this pylon over here and wants to get into a third base. Quite late, actually, we have to say, but at the same time she's already producing a few roaches, moving towards the natural base of Midas in the meantime. Midas actually seems to want to go into a third base, or she just wants to sneak out a probe in order to get some proxy pylon maybe out, but it seems as if she really wants to, or wanted at least, to go for a third expand, but then the Phoenix, the hallucinated Phoenix, saw the roaches moving across the map, so now she knows that Roach and Ravager is headed towards her base. More roaches actually incoming, while behind she tries to take the third hatchery. So let's see what's here. We have 1.5 pylons back here, and also we have a pylon up here, so yeah, actually the roaches can't really move in from any angle without getting shot at by at least one or even two pylons. We have a lot of units out already, but it's more units for Novea here, and she also has the possibility to throw down Biles. Wow! Even forcing out two of these photon overcharges, and might even get the mothership core. Not yet, but the mothership core only has enough energy. Well, now it has enough energy for two more photon overcharges, while we have another warp in round. So Novea just checks for a third base, waddles in once more. First Immortal is out as well, just tries to target it down. Nice little micro there by Midas, so it seems as if she should be able to easily hold this. and Novea just trying to deal some more damage while escaping. Unfortunately, the one force field is not enough to totally wall off that ramp, and that's not a misplaced force field, it's actually not enough. You can't wall this off with only one force field. So yeah, the units escape while more units get in for reinforcements, but I feel that Novea actually shouldn't really overcommit to this push anymore. I mean, with every minute that passes, Novea will just have the possibility, Midas will just have the possibility to get out more Immortals, get out more units, actually trying to apply some counter pressure here with the Adept, sending them towards the third base, and they will actually be able to deal quite some significant amount of damage. But maybe so will Novea. I mean, these are some units that are now going to be missing in the defense. Unfortunately, also Midastouch just wanted to get an Overlord sniped down and just pulled all of her army out of position. So actually, if Novea just had committed for a big attack towards the third base, she could have probably easily taken it out, but unfortunately she just realizes that there's harassment going on inside her third base that could have actually easily shaded into the natural base, and she just pulled her whole army back in order to defend it. Wow, okay, this is one stray Immortal by Midastouch here, probably a total misrally here. Don't really know what's going on, but I feel that, yeah, this was just misrallied somehow, don't really know why. Okay, in the meantime, Novea just gathering her forces close to the third base location. Any sort of static defense is not really up. Only these pylons over here, but they already get taken down with bile shots as we speak. So now the army just moves in. It's considerably smaller than that of Novea, yeah? And if actually Novea manages to take out that third base, this game might just spiral downwards from there on for Midas here, because not having a third base on Daybreak is just critical if you want to go into a long-term game. So, more biles raining down, the Immortals, 3 at a time, actually just dishing out terrible damage toward these roaches, and it seems as if, again, Novea just has to retreat for now, having the bigger supply, still producing 18 more roaches in the process, but yeah, the army just follows, tries to take out more units as we speak, and finally the biles just drive her opponent back home while she can just escape, or at least gather more forces. In the middle of the map, we'll probably try to get into the third base once more. I mean, this Nexus has lost a lot of shields, but they can all regenerate in some time. While in the meantime, I think now Novea, well, I think it would actually really be better for Novea to just drone up a little bit more, get a good third base economy, but actually she's economically behind. She needs to do something before that. She can't just hope to win the game in the economical fight, because Protoss is already on 3 bases and can now already saturate them. So like I said, if she manages to take it out, that would really be a good hit. So Mothership Course over here gets taken out with biles like crazy here, but the Photon Overcharge is still on. Now the army engages the army of NoveaStar over at the right hand side. Nice little micro movement here by the Midastouch, avoiding most of these corrosive biles, but there's still some left. And now of course we have the problem that the Ravagers actually don't get bonus damage by the Immortals, so Immortals just have to retreat for now. Okay, actually nice saving here, or trying to save at least the injured Immortal, but actually picking up 2 others, but the injured Immortal still okay. More units being rallied across the map. Yeah, there they are, the Roaches, and also now Hydras, now moving towards the third base location. Still, this is an okay army. This army can actually take out this Ravager army with good micro and good movement. But yeah, of course it's not easily done. Now the Immortals are pretty exposed, but they still deal a lot of damage. I mean, they deal 60 damage versus armored, but they also deal 24 damage against any other kind of unit. And yeah, that's still considerable damage. And again, she manages to drive her opponent away from the third base, can keep it, and Novea has not taken a fourth of her own. So economically spoken, her main base is pretty dry. Her natural base is also, I mean, running out of minerals. There are some minerals that are pretty low. The third base is quite healthy because it was taken kinda late, but without a fourth base, and there it finally goes down, but the Warp Prism and the Adept are already there in order to take it out. So again, Novea just has to cancel it, has to move away, and we'll have to take another fourth base somewhere else, probably somewhere around here, but she's still pretty late with it. I mean, her opponent has been on even bases for quite some time, and that usually makes Zerg pretty all in. So if Novea now finally, with most of the army being out of position, manages to take out that third base, that should finally be the move that might get her ahead, especially if she manages to somehow also get a fourth base at the same time. Warp Prism still waiting to deal some damage over here. There are some Lings in position, but these are Adapts, so let's see if it's going to work or not. I mean, she just releases them into the surrounding Zerglings. There's also a Queen close by and a few Roaches as well, so Midas has to retreat, pulling out the Warp Prism just at the last moment. And while trying to take a third base over here, with the units unfortunately totally out of position there, Novea just moves in and kills it once more. Doesn't really want to fight upwards that ramp. I mean, Bile shots pretty nicely here. Unfortunately, Midas obviously not really watching her own army at the moment. Maybe was busy microing her harassment prism back here. But yeah, this is again the biggest problem. From now on, Novea could just easily starve out her opponent. She will always now have the bigger army here. There's actually no real chance for Midas to ever max out if her opponent doesn't let her. Nice little concave here, even blinking towards the right hand side in order to get an even better concave with all the units she has, but the units are just not enough. Novea just taking out almost everything. Doesn't really want to lose her whole army, so she retreats to come back a better day. But yeah, this is like the old war of attrition that Zerg really wants to play in the long run. Taking more bases yourself, getting economically ahead, just trading off kind of worthless units against really valuable gas-heavy units. And these are trades that a Protoss just can't afford to do forever. So at some point in time, you just overwhelm them by numbers, which is the Zerg game. So Warp Prism spots another fourth base being taken up here. The Adept actually even dies. Midas can't really get it to safety anymore, but the Warp Prism is still a threat. I mean, it still can come back and warp in units whenever it wants, but of course there's always the threat of Novea's army just lurking up here, without lurkers actually, and being dangerous. I mean, it's mostly Ravagers, so she has to be careful once these units actually close in at some point and avoid a lot of those Bile shots. These can just deal terrible damage, especially the Archons over here that just dish out extra damage against biological units. But yeah, I mean, this Roach Ravager, or this Ravager force, just actually is probably just too strong already. The time has already come where Midas is behind 100 supply, and army-wise 100 supply as well. So all the 100 supply, or being behind the 100 supply, is actually all of the army. Yeah, there's just not much that Midas can do here, just struggling to hold off in a last stand, but realizes this is GG, and Novea ties the series 1-1. Echo is our third map of this best of 5. It's 1-1 between those two ladies. Midastouch in red playing Protoss, and NoveaStar playing Zerg in teal. So let's see how this is continuing. This time around, Midas actually wants to wall at the bottom of her main ramp and the top of her natural ramp, because this is a pretty small ramp towards her natural base. So she just feels comfortable with sealing off the entrance with a few buildings early on. Is convinced that her opponent does not really want to go into some sort of early pool play and rushing her, and even if she did, she might even be able to hold it with a few buildings and the first few units. Although, of course, this also has become a little bit more problematic, as I talked about before. Usually, back in the old Wings of Liberty and also Heart of the Swarm days, you tended to go Forge first as a Protoss player, so that you would have a Forge as your first building, and then if need be you would usually just scout either after the pylon straight up or just after the forge in order to find out whether your opponent was trying to early rush you, and then you could just easily usually get out one cannon behind it and then another building to seal off the wall completely. So once the first lings arrived, they couldn't really get in because the wall was tight, and they would have to gnaw their way through one of the buildings, but then the cannon would eventually spawn and fend it off in time. So that was usually the plan you wanted to do back then. Of course, like I said before and tried to explain, you can't really do that anymore. It's not really a valuable opening anymore. Of course, you can still use it for cannon rush and then it still might work, but the biggest problem is that Zerg now has more options in order to avoid that wall completely and move directly into your base. The easiest one being the Overlord drop possibility. So a forge opening won't really help you that much defend your own base, because the Zerg player can just always decide to not attack your wall and instead go directly for your main base. So you need some units that actually can walk around and take out units that are inside your main base. But this also means that you usually start with a gateway opening. And a gateway opening has the problem that even if you have some buildings out that wall off, you won't really have anything behind it, like a cannon that can, for instance, help you defend that wall. And until you have a cybernetics core out, which you usually won't if an early pool actually hits your wall, you won't even be able to produce adepts that can just shoot from behind the wall, or you cannot produce stalkers that could also shoot from behind the wall. So the only other unit you could actually produce, or the mothership core by the way, but the only other unit you could produce are zealots, and you would have to send them in front of your wall where the lings actually are. So defending an early push actually becomes a little bit more difficult, especially once your ramp is pretty wide open. This isn't, so it's a little bit more easy to be done, and it's still of course a bit risky for a Zerg player to do it, because then if you really go for an early pool and invest a lot of resources into early lings, you're economically far behind and you need to deal a lot of damage in order to make up for that. And if you don't do, you could just as well walk out directly and leave the game, because you will probably never win it from there on out. Twilight Council being warped in, so let's see what upgrade we can expect out of this time. I think we will also see a Robo a little bit later on, but let's see what Midas is actually up to. She has, again, blocked the third base, has done that in all of the games so far. Mothership Core just moving out a little bit, trying to get some more information of the outskirts of our natural base. Maybe some Banelings morphing there, maybe already some Ravagers morphing there, you never know, so you really want to know. While Novea this time around also goes into a Roach Warren once more. Yeah, maybe even trying to mind game her opponent a little bit. I mean, we've already spoken about how the FSL actually encourages players to widen their playstyle, to just realize that you can't really play the same shit all day long, because people eventually will figure out your playstyle and then just blind counter it. So you have to think of something else to do. You have to change up a little, or at least you have to be able to change up a little, and you have to feel comfortable with this. So yeah, we actually see a lot of players just trying out some new stuff, trying to mind game their opponents, because they know that their opponents know that they have this certain play style, and thus they just play something else. But of course, just playing something else is not always a good thing to do, just to do it, but you also have to practice it as well in order to be able to execute it as well, because it doesn't help you if you just do a different strategy but you're bad at it. So yeah, that's just, like I said, one of the great things I feel about the playing or being a part of the FSL, that it just forces you, if you really take it seriously, if you're a competitive person and you actually want to win your games when participating in season mode, it just brings you to practice more, to practice different strategies, to find the holes in your own play and fix them. And yeah, I mean, what else could you wish for as a competitive StarCraft player? I mean, that's just a good environment that helps you to get better. And that is what the FSL is all about. Well, mostly. It's not the only thing that the FSL is all about, but yeah, it's a pretty important part. So, Novea just moving in with more roaches. Midas just realizes what's going on. She has the observer sent across the map, but now it actually saw that roaches were in position. Okay, nice little pylon making over here, and they will actually even be in position once the roach is hit. The mothership core is not that close by. Well, there it is. So there will be a possibility to probably at least throw down one photon overcharge. The other pylon should just get immediately killed by the corrosive biles here, so probably not much that can be done. And actually this army is pretty weak by Midas. I mean, we only have, there's the first immortal, that might help out tremendously. And the speedlots, of course, moving in could also help quite a bit. Good force field usage here, just blocking some of, blocking some of these roaches and killing them off with the Zealots. Now, of course, for now, they just work against it. But yeah, Speedlot's actually pretty good against both Roaches and Ravagers, but especially against the Ravagers, because they are pretty difficult to hit with the Biles. So you can just try to avoid the Biles that try to shoot your army in the back, while your Zealots are just moving forward, shredding off everything that gets close by. So if you have a Roach force that fights Zealots, you really want to stutter step your forces. But of course, once you did it pretty well, you might still end up in a pretty advantageous situation. So now the Immortal very exposed. Midas just tries to micro a little harder and to save it, because this army unit is very, very valuable. Losing one of the Immortals right now, especially with more Roaches incoming, would be just devastating for Midas already. I mean, she already doesn't look really good. It's really problematic for her to reinforce her forces accordingly, and she doesn't even have the Mothership core anymore. Just tries to rebuild it, but it will only have energy enough for one Photon Overcharge and nothing to cast Photon Overcharge on. So I feel it doesn't really help. She just wants to put up the pylons once more, but I don't really know if Novea will give her that time. The Ravagers have finally morphed, and now she will probably just move in once more before the pylons actually even go down. The Zealots I still think are a good choice, but there are no upgrades on them yet, and there's actually not even a forge around. Tries to get into a Dark Shrine here once more, so actually Dark Shrine would help out tremendously, because there's no Overseer with the army. A mistake, and we just have to call it that way. I'm really sorry to do that. But yeah, that's just actually a terrible mistake that a lot of players just do with this initial push, where they actually don't even expect DTs to be out, unless, of course, your opponent did some sort of DT rush and hit you early on, and then you know that they are there. But yeah, very often Zerg players, and we have a lot of, we have seen these mistakes not only by Novea, but by a lot of Zerg players in the FSL already, and also on ladder and also in pro games, is yeah, where these Zerg players just have a big ass army, but no overseers around with them. So once DTs actually getting morphed or get morphed in or get warped in at the front, they just immediately have to retreat, and sometimes they don't even realize what's going on. Oh, a little bit unfortunate for Novea that she just parks her army right beneath the observer, so even giving Midas an even better view of the army composition, that it's still Roach Ravager, but by now I think Midas must feel pretty comfortable already. Finally, she's just managed to get out 5 Immortals, has 1 Archon in the mix as well, can just easily move in more Speedlots, and like we said before, Speedlots are actually pretty good. And in the meantime, we have the 2 DTs just marching into the main base, and there's just nothing here whatsoever. No, well, there's a Spore Crawler. Okay, I just didn't see it because it was just in front. Or it was just underneath this Overlord. Yeah, and there the big attack is, but like I said, I mean, this army does not stand a chance against that one. We have still the 5 Immortals in place. The only thing that really died are the expendable Zealots. So now, finally, Novea's army actually gets driven back. What are the DTs doing? Okay, dealing some damage back here. 5 workers have been killed, not that much, but at least it was something that kept Novea occupied, while the rest of Midas' army was just chasing it down, and is now completely retreating once more. Okay, that's just something we had with Midastouch over and over again. I mean, she's playing it safe. We have to grant her that. There's nothing bad about playing safe. But at some point, I feel that Midas just might be missing the killer instinct. realizing when she could actually just walk in and deal more and more damage. Well, this time around it might even have been a good decision. Did she have the Mothership Core around with her? No. Okay, so that might of course also add to the decision that you didn't really want to overcommit, because you wouldn't really have had the chance to get out alive if need be, if there really was a big army waiting back there. But she gets the 4th base while just returning from the left-hand side, so good move by her, while also actually covering her own 4th with that movement here. So pretty nicely done, we have to actually say. There, the rocks or the debris is still down, so no real big chance for Novea to apply some heavy counter pressure. It would get seen by Midas early enough in order to bring her army into position. Don't really like the army movement right here. I don't think that she really needs to have her army down here at the moment. I think it would be better off somewhere around here, where she could easily just get into the 4th base in order to hold it against potential pushes, but she could always just easily get down into this base or into this area where the push would actually be hitting from easily. So I think this is actually the better position here, and now she also takes it. So we have the Roach Ravager and Hydralisk army over here. I think that the only saving grace for Novea right now might either be Lurkers, but they would be pretty late by now. I think by at the time where she would get at the time she got Lurkers, it would probably be too late. I think what she really needed to do was just crossing her fingers, getting up a 4th base as quickly as possible, and then just transitioning into a late game army of her choice. But not really much there that she can do. I mean, the best thing would probably be Ultras, because it's the only thing she can really get in a short amount of time. Now trying to fight the... Ooh, actually bad engagement there from Midastouch, trying to find upwards that ramp right into the concave. So, I mean, she has a very powerful army. The Colossi also dishing out some damage together with the Archon AoE. So, yeah, that's actually still kind of a good fight if she just manages to lure her opponent into some choke points. But fighting in a choke herself with all these army units around, and especially all the Hydras dishing out damage like crazy, I don't really feel she should engage upwards a ramp. I mean, that's a general rule of thumb. You don't really want to engage upwards a ramp. Sometimes you don't really have a choice. Sometimes you just don't care because you just have way more than the opponent. But yeah, once you realize, this is a very good concave that my opponent has upwards of the rim, you should normally just retreat. Like I said before, Mida's just playing it safe, getting every tech that she actually wants, finally getting some upgrades as well, while, like I said, her opponent finally transitioning into Hive. I mean, she could also now just get, yeah, a Spire, so if she had just planted down a Spire right now, once the layer pops, the Spire would also pop, and she could just immediately morph it into a Greater Spire for Brute Lord play. But yeah, I think her only other tier 3 choice then would be Ultralisks. Don't really know if they would be that good. Like I said before, I think up till a certain point in time, Lurkers would have been okay against that army, but now it doesn't really look that good anymore. So I think the only thing that could really help her out now would be Brood Lords, but she just doesn't have the time in order to get it. Snuck by her army, so both armies actually just passed by each other. And now Novea will be able to take out the 3rd base at least. It's quite an important base, although not the most important here, but she will probably just lose almost all of her army in the process. Protoss also losing quite significant chunks of the army, but the most important units, those units that would be difficult to replace, like the Colossi and the Immortals, are still alive and probably will survive for the most part. Yeah, and I think that actually was a bad decision there by Novea. I think she actually had a good engagement for quite some time until she still tried to stay for a little bit longer and tear down the Colossi and the Immortals as well. So like I said before, all the important gas units, Archons, Immortals, the High Templars, the Colossi, they all survived. So everything that Midas now needs to replace are kind of cheap gateway units, and she can actually mass produce them if she had enough gateways, that is. But yeah, now the counter push, that's just going to kill the important 4th base. Fortunately for Novea, she already has taken a 4th over here as well, so she's not out of the game yet. But at the same time, Protoss has been on 4 bases for quite some time and is even taking a 5th as we speak. So yeah, Novea is now behind in almost everything. I mean, upgrades are the only thing that really speak for her. Her tech is worse than that of her opponent. Her army composition is worse. Her income is worse. No, actually not quite, not right now, but probably in just a few seconds. Well, actually, oh yeah, Midas doesn't really have that many harvesters, but so does Novea. So I would have actually guessed that the income would be considerably better for Midas here, but she's just only now transferring the units. Okay, and now she just moves into the base, and if this base falls, this game is over. I dare have to say, because the problem is that, again, Novea will just dry out eventually. She just will not have enough income. Ooh, terrible, terrible storm just raining down on the army, closing it out. And like I said before, this is already game, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't even matter if Midas just retreated from here and came back later, or if she now just moves in for the killing blow, which she will probably do. Even losing all of this army wouldn't matter. It would only matter if, like, she just stood there, not re-attacking her opponent, and Novea actually took out this army without losing a single unit. Then it would hurt Midas, but it just won't happen. So now the last mining base has finally gone down. Where's actually mining still going on? There's some there are some drones who are just long distance mining. So that's actually the only mining that Novea has. She fell down below 100 supply, while her opponent is on 172 and 5 healthy bases. Well, actually no, this base went down and it never got retaken because Midas never bothered to, and she doesn't really need it anyways. Moves in, GG, and Midas takes the lead with a 2-1. Habitation Station is our 4th map of this best of 5, spawning to the top right hand corner in teal, playing Zerg for Team Hush. It's NoveaStar. And to the top left in red, playing Protoss for O Gaming TV and France. It's Midastouch. Midas again goes for the pylon on top of the natural ramp. So again, it's actually the same ramp that we had on Echo, so it's almost identical situations here. The only difference, I even think that the rush distance from the natural ramp towards your opponent's natural ramp is actually as long, maybe even longer than on Echo. But yeah, probably around the same amount of time it takes a unit to get from here to here than on Echo. So, of course, the layout of the map is quite different, but the rush distance is what's usually important if you consider to take a Nexus first, or if you consider to wall off directly at your natural ramp, or if you want to go for a main ramp wall off. So I think this should actually be almost the same. Don't really have the timings anymore in my brain. I used to know all of these back in Heart of the Swarm and Wings of Liberty, but since these maps have just recently come back, I can't really remember. It's just too long ago that I've last played these maps and figured out all their timings. So, drone even going down. Seems as if... No, okay, Novea just wants to scout for any sort of proxy shenanigans here. Nice little move there. I mean, Midas is not known to play cheeses at all. She's not known to be aggressive early on. We have never seen her be really aggressive in any of her games so far, I think. But yeah, again, like I said, I mean, Midas is a player of the FSL like everyone else, and she also has to realize that at some point, if she just gets too predictable with her builds and with the style he plays, players will just figure it out and blind counter her. So she also will be aware, will either be already aware of that, or will get made aware of it sometime later throughout the season. And then we'll probably also have to change it up a little bit. And then we will also see a little bit of cheese play every now and then. And it's a healthy thing to do. I think that's something you always should be capable of as a good player, to just... you don't have to be creative like TLO and just be unpredictable in every game you play, but unpredictability just means that the opponent cannot be quite sure whether you will always rush or whether you will just always play macro. That's just a bad habit. If your opponent just knows what you're doing 100% of the time, that just becomes a problem if you play in a league and if you play best of 5s all the time. but it's already helpful if you just switch it up a little bit, and then your opponent can only be 90% of the time certain that you will go for that certain build or that certain style. And even these 10% discrepancy might even be able to help you out a little bit and make your opponents nervous. So, a lot of links already moving out, so this might actually cause some panic towards Midas maybe, and that's why she produces a sentry here, but it's probably also a safety sentry. She has been building sentries quite often in the last few matches. We've seen her do it first on... what was it? On the first map? On the first map in the first game, actually, of this Best of 5 series. Where, I think Overgrowth, yeah, it was Overgrowth, where she had a sentry as well, just in case that your opponent wanted to bang bust you, you would have the possibility to throw down sentries. And that's what she can actually do now if need be. So, a lot of links just containing her opponent. While she's not going for an early third base, let's see what her tech choice actually is. She gets more gases up. Seems as if she might want to go into some sort of 2-base muta harassment. For now, well, no, she has saturated her two gases over here. Has saturated the third gas. Will probably saturate the fourth gas as soon as possible. Ooh, and now actually goes into a third hatchery at the gold minerals. So, while still containing her opponent for a little bit, but now the mothership core just cleared the entrance, and finally Midas has the chance to take a third as well, which gets spotted right away by that Ling that Novea actually parked down there and had left there in order to scout the third as soon as possible, and it did its job tremendously. So, units now moving in once more. Wants to deny that base over here, will probably not be able to succeed though. This should be actually too many units when micromanaged well enough. I think these adepts should actually just take out the links, just barely, but more links actually streaming in, but also more adepts getting warped in as well. There's also the mothership core, but not in position, but I feel that Novea will not be able to take out that base with a few links only. So still, I mean, it's also good harassment. She just manages to maybe take out a unit here and there, keeps her opponent on her toes and a little bit busy. Doesn't want to lose too many links though. Ooh, even committing to more and more of these links. It seems as if she really thinks that she might be able to take out that base over here. There's still no more static defenses, it's only pylons and a few gateways, but the pylons are still pretty well covered. So once the photon overcharge goes down, there's no real way for the links to close in and take it out, and the mothership core just has enough energy available for a lot of photon overcharges. Tries to avoid the main tries to avoid the third and wants to get right into the natural base, but the sentry is still there, also a unit blocking the ramp, so no chance for her to actually get in and deal more damage, but more and more links just being rallied across the map. Don't really know how I feel about this. In the meantime, she just takes a fourth base behind it, moves in once more, just links and links and links like crazy. But yeah, the photon overcharges are just still pretty deadly to all the things. I mean, this pylon was pretty exposed, and now the other one is as well. Wow, even taking out the pylon and unpowering the gateways here. Still, the army forces are pretty strong, and she's lost a lot of links in the process. So if Midas actually decided to just go for a counter push right now after realizing, hey, you've just lost most of your army, I think Novea might have just thought of her links to be more expendable than they actually are, because she's just taken her rich mineral field base. So this, of course, will just boost her mineral income by quite a lot once she finally manages to saturate it completely, which she does now. And then she just probably thought, yeah, well, links, fuck it. I have a lot of minerals, I have a lot of lava, I can just overwhelm you with links for now, just send them in order to keep you busy, and in the meantime I can just get my mutaflock up if I want. Yeah, I didn't really go into, or didn't really point out the muta transition this time around, because I did it throughout the first time. Or throughout the first map and the first game of this series thoroughly, so I thought it was not really worth mentioning that there is, of course, mutas incoming right behind the flood wings. because we talked about this for quite some time. Yeah, and this should just be awful for Midastouch here. I mean, Muta's just flying in, she has actually no anti-air, might actually be able to kill that base, but will lose her whole army in the process, and she doesn't even have any tech behind it that can actually deal with the Mutas at all. So once Novea finally cleared this up, and she still have a third available, losing 7 drones, losing the base doesn't really mean anything if you already have almost a full table of Mutas flying around. So now the Mutas will just come in. Photon cannons won't do jack shit about this. There's actually, again, no static defense whatsoever, not even a pylon in the background. Yeah, and these few Stalkers just won't do a thing against this Mutas flock. Mutas can just fly in, kill off a Stalker, almost one-shotting a Stalker, well, two-shotting mostly a Stalker when flying in. Yeah, and she can just afford it. I mean, even if she loses some of the Mutas here or there, it doesn't actually even matter. Every anti-air unit that Midas uses in this engagement is just a terrible thing to lose. So yeah, Novea just flying in once more, two-shotting another Stalker over here. He denies mining from that base, or has been denying mining from that base for quite some time. Will eventually, if she commits, just get that Nexus killed as well, and can then just fly out. I mean, the Stalkers are there, but they don't even have blink, so Novea can just easily again fly from base to base, take out the static defense, and the bouncing damage might even deal some additional damage towards that probe. Finally, when the units move in, she can just easily fly out and attack at a place somewhere else. And of course, she also keeps her opponent pinned back in the meantime, while she can just do whatever she wants at home. For instance, taking that hatchery over here once more, getting her other base saturated. Yeah, and 16 workers right now have been killed. If we just have a look at the income tab, we see that right now Zerg has actually more workers than Protoss. Protoss actually has more bases saturated, or had more bases saturated for quite some time, so the income was a little bit better here and there, but this will change in just a few seconds, especially once Novea maybe gets back into worker production. But for now, she just wants to dish out as much damage as possible, wants to utilize the superior movability of her army here, the superior mobility of her army here. And again, if the Stalkers just move in bit by bit, Novea can just focus fire them down one by one, and Midas realizes, yeah, I was not prepared for that transition, GG's out, and Novea ties the series 2-2. Habitation Station is our fourth map of this best of 5, spawning to the top right hand corner in teal, playing Zerg for Team Hush. It's NoveaStar. And to the top left in red, playing Protoss for O Gaming TV and France. It's Midastouch. Midas again goes for the pylon on top of the natural ramp. So again, it's actually the same ramp that we had on Echo, so it's almost identical situations here. The only difference, I even think that the rush distance from the natural ramp towards your opponent's natural ramp is actually as long, maybe even longer than on Echo. But yeah, probably around the same amount of time it takes a unit to get from here to here than on Echo. So of course the layout of the map is quite different, but the rush distance is what's usually important if you consider to take a Nexus first, or if you consider to wall off directly at your natural ramp, or if you want to go for a main ramp wall off. So I think this should actually be almost the same. Don't really have the timings anymore in my brain. I used to know all of these back in Heart of the Swarm and Wings of Liberty, but since these maps have just recently come back, I can't really remember. It's just too long ago that I've last played these maps and figured out all their timings. So, drone even going down. Seems as if... no, okay, Novea just wants to scout for any sort of proxy shenanigans here. Nice little move there. I mean, Midas is not known to play cheeses at all. She's not known to be aggressive early on. We have never seen her be really aggressive in any of her games so far, I think. But yeah, again, like I said, I mean, Midas is a player of the FSL like everyone else, and she also has to realize that at some point, if she just gets too predictable with her builds and with the style he plays, players will just figure it out and blind counter her. So she also will be aware, will either be already aware of that, or will get made aware of it sometime later throughout the season. And then we'll probably also have to change it up a little bit. And then we will also see a little bit of cheese play every now and then. And it's a healthy thing to do. I think that's something you always should be capable of as a good player, to just... you don't have to be creative like TLO and just be unpredictable in every game you play. But unpredictability just means that the opponent cannot be quite sure whether you will always rush or whether you will just always play macro. That's just a bad habit. If your opponent just knows what you're doing 100% of the time, that just becomes a problem if you play in a league and if you play best of fives all the time. But it's already helpful if you just switch it up a little bit, and then your opponent can only be 90% of the time certain that you will go for that certain build or that certain style. And even these 10% discrepancy might even be able to help you out a little bit and make your opponents nervous. So, a lot of links already moving out, so this might actually cause some panic towards Midas maybe, and that's why she produces a sentry here, but it's probably also a safety sentry. She has been building sentries quite often in the last few matches. We've seen her do it first on... what was it? On the first map? On the first map in the first game, actually, of this Best of 5 series. Where, I think Overgrowth, yeah, it was Overgrowth, where she had a sentry as well, just in case that your opponent wanted to bang bust you. You would have the possibility to throw down sentries. And that's what she can actually do now if need be. So, a lot of links just containing her opponent. While she's not going for an early third base, let's see what her tech choice actually is. She gets more gases up. Seems as if she might want to go into some sort of 2-base muta harassment. For now, like, well, no, she has saturated her two gases over here. Has saturated the third gas. Will probably saturate the fourth gas as soon as possible. Ooh, and now actually goes into a third hatchery at the gold minerals. So, while still containing her opponent for a little bit, but now the Mothership Core just cleared the entrance, and finally Midas has the chance to take a third as well, which gets spotted right away by that Ling that Novea actually parked down there and had left there in order to scout the third as soon as possible, and it did its job tremendously. So, units now moving in once more. Wants to deny that base over here, will probably not be able to succeed though. This should be actually too many units when micromanaged well enough. I think these adepts should actually just take out the Lings, just barely, but more Lings actually streaming in, but also more adepts getting warped in as well. There's also the Mothership Core, but not in position, but I feel that Novea will not be able to take out that base with a few Lings only. So, still, I mean, it's also good harassment. She just manages to maybe take out a unit here and there, keeps her opponent on her toes and a little bit busy. Doesn't want to lose too many Lings though. Ooh, even committing to more and more of these Lings. It seems as if she really thinks that she might be able to take out that base over here. There's still no more static defenses, it's only pylons and a few gateways, but the pylons are still pretty well covered. So once the photon overcharge goes down, there's no real way for the Lings to close in and take it out, and the Mothership Core just has enough energy available for a lot of photon overcharges. Tries to avoid the main tries to avoid the third and wants to get right into the natural base, but the sentry is still there, also a unit blocking the ramp, so no chance for her to actually get in and deal more damage, but more and more Lings just being rallied across the map. Don't really know how I feel about this. In the meantime, she just takes a fourth base behind it, moves in once more, just Lings and Lings and Lings like crazy. But yeah, the photon overcharges are just still pretty deadly to all the things. I mean, this pylon was pretty exposed, and now the other one is as well. Wow, even taking taking out the pylon and unpowering the gateways here. Still, the army forces are pretty strong, and she's lost a lot of links in the process. So if Midas actually decided to just go for a counter push right now after realizing, hey, you've just lost most of your army, I think Novea might have just thought of her links to be more expendable than they actually are, because she's just taken her rich mineral field base. So this of course will just boost her mineral income by quite a lot once she finally manages to saturate it completely, which she does now. And then she just probably thought, yeah, well, links, fuck it. I have a lot of minerals, I have a lot of lava, I can just overwhelm you with links for now, just send them in order to keep you busy, and in the meantime I can just get my Mutaflock up if I want. Yeah, I didn't really go into, or didn't really point out the Muta transition this time around, because I did it throughout the first time. Or throughout the first map and the first game of this series thoroughly, so I thought it was not really worth mentioning that there is, of course, Mutas incoming right behind the flood rings, because we talked about this for quite some time. Yeah, this should just be awful for Midastouch here. I mean, Muta's just flying in, she has actually no anti-air, might actually be able to kill that base, but will lose her whole army in the process, and she doesn't even have any tech behind it that can actually deal with the Mutas at all. So once Novea finally cleared this up, and she still have a third available, losing 7 drones, losing the base doesn't really mean anything if you already have almost a full table of Mutas flying around. So now the Mutas will just come in. Photon cannons won't do jack shit about this. There's actually, again, no static defense whatsoever, not even a pylon in the background. Yeah, and these few Stalkers just won't do a thing against this Mutas flock. Mutas can just fly in, kill off a Stalker, almost one-shotting a Stalker, well, two-shotting mostly a Stalker when flying in. Yeah, and she can just afford it. I mean, even if she loses some of the Mutas here or there, it doesn't actually even matter. Every anti-air unit that Midas uses in this engagement is just a terrible thing to lose. So yeah, Novea just flying in once more, two-shotting another Stalker over here. He denies mining from that base, or has been denying mining from that base for quite some time. Will eventually, if she commits, just get that Nexus killed as well, and can then just fly out. I mean, the Stalkers are there, but they don't even have blink, so Novea can just easily again fly from base to base, take out the static defense, and the bouncing damage might even deal some additional damage towards that probe. Finally, when the units move in, she can just easily fly out and attack at a place somewhere else. And of course, she also keeps her opponent pinned back in the meantime, while she can just do whatever she wants at home. For instance, taking that hatchery over here once more, getting her other base saturated. Yeah, and 16 workers right now have been killed. If we just have a look at the income tab, we see that right now Zerg has actually more workers than Protoss. Protoss actually has more bases saturated, or had more bases saturated for quite some time, so the income was a little bit better here and there, but this will change in just a few seconds, especially once Novea maybe gets back into worker production. But for now, she just wants to dish out as much damage as possible, wants to utilize the superior movability of her army here, the superior mobility of her army here. And again, if the Stalkers just move in bit by bit, Novea can just focus fire them down one by one, and Midas realizes, yeah, I was not prepared for that transition, GG's out, and Novea ties the series 2-2. Newkirk Precinct is the final map of this best of 5. It's 2-2. And this map will decide who is going to win this best of 5 between our teal player to the bottom right hand corner playing Zerg, NoveaStar, our red player playing Protoss for Gaming TV. It's Midastouch, who again just wants to go for an early expand. This time around, actually, the ramp is a little bit bigger. I think it should be a little bit bigger of a ramp, a little bit wider. I think by 1 column, and maybe not. Maybe I'm just mistaken. It only looks bigger, but it really isn't. While Novea actually, wow, that is ballsy. I mean, it's a best of 5. It's the deciding map and she actually goes for cheese. Wow. This is brave. Let's see if it's going to work out. Wow. Okay, I don't know. Probe is moving in, so Midas will spot it very early on, but she's already decided to go into gateway. I have been talking about this early on. It has become more difficult to defend a wall at the natural ramp if you don't go forge first, which you usually don't do anymore in Legacy of the Void, since, like I said before, I mean, you can of course wall off, but what good does a wall do you if you don't have the necessary units behind it, or the necessary building behind it to also defend it? Then the building just sits there and can get easily killed. Of course, if you just warp out a few units, there might be enough in order to help you defend it, and this is what Midas is just doing all the correct answers here, just doing an almost complete wall off with just one zealot out. Will probably just try to boost out another one. Firstlings are already on the way, speed is halfway done, but of course the Baneling Nest is the really important thing. Novea realizes that she will probably need some Banelings in order to bust through these buildings, and then of course it's always, again, an executional thing, always just fixing or just realizing how much you actually need. And here we see that the cybernetics core is already done. Double gateway has also already been done. Midas even feeling comfortable with taking the Nexus down here. And yeah, I mean, right now she even has the chance to produce a mothership core whenever she wants. Hasn't taken the gases though, and that's actually the biggest problem about it. You need so many resources here, that so many resources, so many buildings in order to seal this off, that you just have to spend a lot of minerals. And with these minerals being spent and also the base being taken, you just don't have enough minerals in order to get an assimilator and the gas count up, which you need for like adepts or the mothership core, which will of course also be pretty helpful. Baneling's morphing, only a few lings around here. She actually just takes a base right behind it. Don't really know how I feel about this. It's like the backup plan if this just shouldn't work, but I think she is already committed so far that it doesn't even matter. I think it would be better to just fully commit and not just like do 1/2 bit of something. Well, maybe the minerals were left anyway, so I can't really tell you right now whether it was the better decision or not. If she just had some minerals left over anyways, why not just spend it into a hatchery that just gives you some additional lava as well. But yeah, here we see the same. Here we now see the biggest problem. Actually, Midas has a lot of zealots over here and just re-walls right behind it. She was already preparing to do so, or had just already planned to do so right from the get-go by setting up this forge over here. Yeah, now actually this push is old. No way in hell that Novea will be able to deal some damage. Just has to cancel a few of these Banelings again. So with only 3 to 4 Banelings around, and even has to cancel more, she won't be able to break through any of these buildings or units. And then there's auto photon overcharge available. So even if she managed to just get up, Midas could just also plan photon overcharge on one pylon and then just focus firing down the Banelings. So this is nothing that Novea can, or there's just nothing that Novea can do from here on out. The only thing might actually be an Overlord drop right into the main. That might actually be something she could do from now on. And yeah, that's just what I said. I mean, Zerg usually doesn't have to commit to go through the wall. You can also try to avoid it. But this is not something that Novea is doing. I mean, here's a good stare. You could just move the lings over here and morph this one into a Dropper-Lord, and then just send in some units, unload them, and then just send in some more, unload them, and then maybe deal some damage inside the main base, because until very recently there haven't been actually anything there to defend. So, and then you could have just dealt the damage you really needed to deal, because like we said before, I mean, this was pretty committed. Novea finally broke off the attack and now walks home, but the biggest problem right now is that she is on the same amount of bases as her opponent. And if we just have a look at the worker count, it's 41 to 32. So Novea is just behind in almost everything. She has less workers, she at least has lair tack, but she's only on 1 gas so far, hasn't even trying to take a 3rd base, and this is what Midastouch does check, so great scouting by here, we have to admit. That she just, because this is the only threatening thing, this is the only thing she really needs to know right now. Has my opponent just really taken a 3rd, and can I just punish that? Or is she still on 2 bases and the only thing I have to do now is just play my game? I don't really have to care. If she had taken a third base, I could just walk out and kill it. But she hasn't, so I just lean back, take my own third base. There's no way in hell she can ever attack it, because she's right now trying to drone up and get back into the economical game where she is far behind. So no risk for me whatsoever. I can easily take a third, can just tech up, can just get the army I wanted to get, and then just steamroll her. There will be no way for her to hold a good timing push off of 3 bases, ever. Once you've been so far behind. Novea, of course, it is the last map. She doesn't really want to move out now. She wants to try it. Maybe she can make something happen. So, army moving out. Okay, actually, I think it would be really a good idea to either leave the Mothership Core behind in order to help defend this Nexus against some run-bys. But yeah, the best chances, or the best choice is now to just move out, see whether there's a third base now, and just kill it. And if this third base actually dies, this game is over. At the same time, Phoenix just moves in, gets a good scout of what's going on, has probably even seen the muters. So let's have a look. Yes, Spire and everything has been seen. So Midas actually knows what her opponent is up to. And actually a 2-base muter transition, I mean, it is kind of weak, because like we mentioned before, the gas is just missing. So Novea just will not get up this incredibly terrifying muter count very early on. But of course, with Midas expanding, she also hasn't really put up any counterattack against these muters, but now she is, just going into double Stargate. Like I said, I mean, the muters are not that threatening yet, since, like I said, muter play on a 2-base economy is kinda weakish. Of course, if your opponent just gets you with your pants down, it can still just easily kill you. Don't get me wrong. But if you see it early enough, and like I said, your opponent is just on a 2-base economy, there won't be that many muters out early on, and you should still be able to just defend it kind of okayish until your own tech gets up and you just get the possibility to fend off these muters. Still, Novea doing a good job here. Trying to shut down the mining from the bases, trying to kill off lonely cannons here. Unfortunately, just doesn't get it barely, but just moves into the main base once more, tries to find the weak spots in the defense, and then just killing off other important buildings, like an assimilator over here. Very important building, actually, since gas is very important in order to get out a good number of phoenixes here, so if you just get one assimilator, always a good thing. Mida's just mostly parking her units over here at the 3rd base. Wow, and another good pylon might be going down, unpowering at least the robotics facility that is not really that well needed. And Blink is the tech that should help Midas in the meantime to just deal with the muters that just get bigger and bigger, while at the same time we have a light harassment here over at the right hand side. Novea is just too busy microing the muters to realize what's going on. Now finally realizes after 11 drones had been killed that 2 zealots were just ravaging her mineral line at the 3rd base, and while she just defends at home, she seems to have just missed microed her muters a little bit here, and now what was once like 10 to 12 muters just got shredded to bits and taken out completely. And well, this looks pretty grim from now on, I have to say. This was really a terrible loss. I mean, that was actually the only thing that was keeping Novea in the game. Doing the harassment, keeping and pinning her opponent back, getting herself time in order to get up her economy, which she just lost to the zealots. But yeah, I mean, now she just doesn't have a standing army, and what's she going to do now? I mean, the Corruptors will help a little bit against the Phoenixes, but actually the Phoenixes are not really the problem. The main army on the ground is the problem, and she does only have a few muters and maybe a few lings. Well, I don't see them. I mean, this is not an army, so to speak, of 67 to 34, same upgrades, but Blink is also available, and the army just walks straight into the 3rd base. Midas just knows if she takes out the 3rd base, once more, the drones and the base itself, this game will be over. And it actually is already. Midas, Novea not even attacking with the lings over here, but even if they moved in, it didn't work. Fucked up, let my mutants die over there. That was, like I said before, the problematic thing. GG, and Midas takes the series with a 3-2.